What's up, friends? Nathan Brooks here with another episode of Bridge Mastermind Podcasts. And we have the most amazing 6, 7, 8 figure business owners, entrepreneurs, investors, and amazing people like Mr. Matt Moylan, who is on today. Matt, welcome to the podcast.
Nathan, thanks for having me on, man. I'm excited.
Absolutely, bro. It's been so fun. We just crossed 32 members in the mastermind today.
That's crazy. I remember when we were hoping to get 20.
Like 20 in the year, right?
Yeah,
Was
in the
it?
year.
Yeah. So Matt and I Matt was one of the first people you and I were talking about the mastermind before it was even in existence, before there was anything. And we were sitting in some little pizza place in downtown Lee Summit and having a conversation about how it would feel and like what we want it to look like. And so gosh, what a change from like 4 or 5 months later, huh?
Wild. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy when you put your mind to it, how it can just blossom, man. It's been really cool.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So Matt, you decided to do this really crazy thing called 75 hard, which, I have other friends who, would probably call that like 75 crazy. So, what exactly is 75 hard and why in the world did you decide to do that?
Yeah. So 75 hard is the world's foremost most difficult mental toughness challenge. And it was created by a guy named Andy Frisella, who is a world renowned entrepreneur, owns many companies. His most famous one is First Form. Um, and there's multiple components to which it encompasses things that it's 75 days long, and you have certain tasks that you have to do every single day, or you fail and you have to start over. So there's a physical component to where you have to do two separate 45-minute workouts. One has to be outside no matter the weather. You have to drink a gallon of water a day. You have to take progress pictures every day. You have to read 10 pages of a self-development book. Anyway, so there's a list of things that you have to do every single day. And honestly, man, I've been thinking about it for a long time. I've followed Andy and his content for a long time. Had a number of friends that have done it, and it was one of those things that I always thought was a fitness program. And I don't want to do it. No, 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 no. And so then I listened. There's a specific episode of Andy's podcast that goes over what it is, and he talks about it's not a physical thing, it's a mental thing, it's a discipline thing, it's a toughness thing. So I'm big on studying people, having year-long kind of missions, business and personal. And one of mine this year is mental discipline, mental toughness, kind of pushing through whatever the scenario is, whatever the day is, whatever the circumstances. So I felt myself pushing it off, pushing it off. Oh, I'll wait till my birthday because it's in February. Oh, I'll wait till my wife's birthday because I'll wait till this. And it's like, no, I'm going to do it right now. I'm starting Monday. No matter what happens or comes next, like I got to figure it out. I got to just push through. So I'm a little over a weekend. It's been extremely rewarding, but tough. I'll say that.
I can imagine. I'm pretty, strict on a morning routine and drinking water and all those sort of things, but I haven't really tracked it like in the way of a 75 hard. And one of the things that you said is interesting, and I think a lot of people who have heard of Andy, first of all, he's like a big giant burly looking tattooed, cussing mouthed M or F or like, somebody would say, and he's a pretty intense dude.
Yeah.
And I think it is interesting. So like, what was it about Andy that was so you were attracted to, first of all? Like, so how did you like what about him brought that? And then how did you feel about when you first thought it was quote unquote a fitness challenge and then having a realization that was actually it's way more mental to get up and go outside when it's 20 degrees or it's raining or whatever?
Yeah. The thing that to me is inspiring about Andy Frisella is from a business standpoint, how he's built a company or companies, but more important, the standards that he expects of his people. No matter whether you're the janitor or you're his right hand man, C-suite guy, you walk by, and you see something, trash needs to be taken out, or you see something, litter laying on the ground in the parking lot, the expectation is you pick it up. On the same token, in business, you're a go-getter, right? You're a fiery guy. I mean, like hires like. And so Andy tries to find and duplicate himself and create a culture like that. And so as a business owner, as a, an aspiring, entrepreneur like he is, that is to me what, because you're right. A lot of times if you hear 5 minutes of him and any day, it's you either love him or you hate him.
Yeah.
Because that's just how he is. But he's, if you listen to his why for everything, it's always the bigger cause. It's always America first. It's always, mental discipline. It's always the self-discipline and raising the standards of the people that you're around.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And so
and then,
how
yeah.
about you for you? Yeah, on the mental side. So how did you like, well, first of all, you first thought it was a fitness program. So maybe even talk about that. Like, so you thought it was a fitness program, but actually is a like a mental uh like it's an arduous thing.
Mhm. More than anything, so you go on Instagram, you go on TikTok, you go on Facebook, and there's people always posting their progress pictures of, or they're everybody's seen it. 75 hard, it's black, it's got the red numbers on it. 1 out of 75 days, 75 out of 7, whatever. Um, to me, I always thought and assumed it was just a physical thing, and not that I'm not a physical person. It's just I'm like, I don't need to do all that. I read every day anyway. I drink water. I work out. Like I don't need that other stuff. Um, to me, it was what really kind of changed the game for me was deciding that 2024 was a year of mental and discipline and structure and toughness.
Mm-hmm.
And he had talked about that on one of his podcasts earlier in the year. So I went back and re-listened to the podcast where he talked about it all, again for probably the second or third time, to be honest. And it just hit different because my goals were different. I knew I wanted to be more disciplined. I wanted to be more resistant to external factors. And that to me was kind of when I said, all right, you know what? It's not if I'm ever going to do it. It's this is when I'm doing it. I'm going to do it, period.
So one of the things that showed up for me, and there have been things like that for me, which was like jujitsu, for instance. And I probably sat around for 2 years thinking about, training jujitsu. And but Joe Rogan and Jocko Willink and Tim Ferriss, all having, constant bombardment. So what would you say for people who are thinking about doing something like that, like 75 hard or doing 75 hard? And how do you first of all make the choice to make that level of commitment, right? To make the commitment to do it. And then like what was the thing that actually got you to say, that's it, I'm actually going to do it? Because I think a lot of people struggle with saying like, I want to do it, but, or I'm, maybe next week or maybe next month or whatever.
Yeah. So there's a couple culmination of things. Um, like I said, I had listened, and Andy says this too, listen to it 2 or 3 or 4 times and understand the program. And if you're just doing it to do it, don't do it. If you're doing it for a fitness thing, don't do it. It is a mental toughness program. You are going to go through great highs and significant lows. And if you don't have a why, if your why is not extremely strong as to why you're doing it, if you're doing it for a fitness program, you're going to fail, period.
Yeah.
So don't just lean on that. Like have a solid why. And that's going to push you through. For my kind of final straw, there was, I would say, two things. One was like a physical experience, and then the other one was a mental thing. The physical experience was I had a chance to see David Goggins in person and have him speak. And there was a couple other people there that spoke on mental toughness as well. But Goggins is like the king of mental toughness, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it just kept playing in my head. I need to do 75 hard. I need to do 70. I need to do it. I need to do it. And so I had that. And then there goes by another week after I saw him. And then, then it was, it was coming up and it was my birthday and well, it's my birthday and then it's my wife's birthday. And I said, no, you know what? I'll celebrate my wife's birthday and have a piece of cake because that was the other thing. You got to follow a diet. Right?
Right.
That's the one I forgot. But Monday, I'm starting. Period. No questions. No, like, it doesn't matter what's coming up. It doesn't matter what I have to miss. It doesn't matter what I have to sacrifice. If that's what I have to do, that's what I have to do. And that's the reason I'm doing this. So those were kind of the two like last straws for me. Is I saw Goggins, but then I felt myself be, oh, I'll do it after this. Oh, I'll do it at, and I just kind of put my foot down
You
on
said
myself.
enough. By the way, I remember last year I was doing 30 days in February of no alcohol, and I was literally on a plane. The Chiefs were playing in the Super Bowl. All I wanted to do was have a freaking beer on the plane. You know, like the game is in and out, and I literally show up. You know, they win the Super Bowl, and it's like celebrate. I have this water, and but
Cheers.
yeah, but at the same time, you realize that it doesn't matter, right? Like you can totally celebrate and enjoy the moment without having whatever insert whatever thing, whatever vice, whatever. So
Yeah.
you mentioned setting different goals and kind of thinking about that in this year. What was different for you as you were setting goals in 2024 that was different, and what kind of goals have you been setting? What are you working towards?
You know, I think that um well, shameless plug. We did an end of year bridge mastermind goal setting, which you hosted, and it was tremendous. So shameless plug, which helped a ton. But I think that um, 2023, I put myself around people. I networked with people who were at and beyond where I want to be, at least where I think I want to be, and aligned myself to them to where it's like, okay, what do I need to do? What kind of goals do I need to have? What kind of personal habits do I need to have every day um, to keep my mindset right, keep my discipline and my toughness right, keep the business increasing and compounding year over year, month over month, year over year. Um, I think part of that is strategic alignment, like I said, with those people, but not being afraid to dream big and getting around people. Like I said, like I met people last year who I don't have any aspiration, at least at this point, to be where they are, but to see what they're doing and the actions they take and how they dream and how they approach their business was massively eye opening to me.
Mm,
To where the biggest thing that I understood was, don't just have a goal. You need to be specifically and extremely specific on that goal. So if your goal is to, own a multifamily property or own a watch collection, great. But what does it look like? What does it feel like? Is that multifamily property on the beach? Is it in the middle of a city? Does that watch, is it gold? Is it white? Is it, what's it look like? What's it feel like? What's it taste like? Go and experience it if you can. So just getting super realistic and clear with specifically what that is helped me kind of create the 2024.
that's so awesome. And man, setting goals and being specific, and I talk about this all the time, and you probably, more than most would know, because we spent a fair amount of time together with the mastermind, is, you can't achieve that goal if you don't have it clear enough. And I was on a call today and talking about vision, strategy, and tactics, and we have to have all of those things in that order. So you have the vision, so you create what it looks like, and you have the strategy of like, okay, what do we do about it? How do we go about this? And then the tactics is, okay, now we are going to do that right now. And so it requires all three of those things, and for us to really be thoughtful about it.
Mm-hmm.
So and gosh, I talk I talk with people all the time. I had a conversation today with somebody who said, I want to be financially free, and I'm like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Oh, I want to, and I'm like, no, I don't know. Like, I know what it means for me because I've spent a ton of time thinking about this and talking to people, thousands of people probably at this point about it. But I want you to be able to say it in really simple terms. And I will say this over and over and over now. Like my 10-year-old daughter could explain it and understand it and be able to. And if we don't have it distilled to that level, then dude, wait, how can we possibly hit it?
Mhm. Yeah, 100%. I say the same thing all the time. Hey, I need to understand it and I need to be able to explain it like you're a fifth grader. And I know Hormozy says the same thing. Like you need to talk to whoever you're talking to, or you need to be able to explain it in that way. So 100%, man. Totally agree.
Exactly. So you're a creative wealth strategist. You do some really interesting and unique things. What would you say is one of the things that people miss when they're thinking about, building wealth or thinking about protecting their own, livelihood or household wealth or maybe even building wealth for the first time? What do you think what are the big things that you see where people just miss? They don't understand.
Yeah. This may come off harshly. I don't mean it to be, but people think they know they're educated because of what their parents taught them.
Mm,
They think they know what's right because their parents or because of what their parents taught them. A lot of what the financial realm, even real estate investing, anything in finance, a lot of times isn't really taught a whole lot in schools. How to build wealth, how to build your credit, how to keep a budget, how to um, there's a whole bunch of things like that. And so for me, I think one of the biggest hurdles that or obstacles that I see people allow to stay in their own way is they think they know and they're just completely closed minded to whatever it is,
mhm,
right? And I'll be honest, like what I do is not meant for everybody. Just like real estate isn't meant for everybody. Just like other things are not meant for everybody. But having the openness and the willingness to do your own research or learn and actually consume and take it in like a sponge to see and not only like I said, hearing from your parents or hearing from in my space, it's there's a couple gurus, financial gurus that have been around for decades and love them or hate them. You can have your own opinions, but they don't tell the whole story. They tell their story, and it's a part of their branding, and they've made massive businesses for them, and good for them.
So let's dig in that because I think
Yeah,
you mentioned a couple things that I really hit home for me. One is, what we learned, from whether it's our parents or education in general. And, I love my parents. They've done an excellent job and they both worked, 30 plus years and they have a retirement that they get to travel the world and do cool stuff with. And by the way, I'm heading with my parents to Africa, bro, in like
that's so exciting.
three months or something. And so it was like 3 years ago we'd set this goal to go as a family and COVID. But when I think about all those things and I think about my financial education, it occurred in ways that there were things as a kid I didn't like how my parents approached things, or there were things that I didn't like I didn't want to be broke. I wanted to have money resources. I wanted to have time resources, and of course, that evolves over time. But how do you actually go about educating our kids now and educating our people around us to be more financially literate? Since we know, like, hey, this is not happening in schools, this is not happening even in upper education, it's not happening in most households. So, what do we do about it?
I think we start where you just ended. It's not happening in most households.
Yeah.
So you can't teach your kids something that you don't do.
Hmm.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
Right? Your kids are going to follow what you do or what you teach. And if you don't practice it yourself, your kids won't practice it until they're of age to where they can kind of realize, hey, this is what I want to do.
Well, and you
And
hope that they have some
you
education because in that case, you're basically leaving it a chance, right?
100%. And so I think to eliminate that leaving it to chance, I'm sure we've all played Yahtzee, right? Yeah, we can get a Yahtzee once in a time, but there's a reason that you get massively bonused for throwing a Yahtzee, right? It just doesn't happen very often. Does it happen? Yes, it does. But if you're strategic in how you do it, you have a plan, you do your education, you create a vision. We talked about a vision just a little bit ago of what that looks like. What's financial freedom look like? What's wealth look like? What's that mean? What can we start doing tomorrow? What can we start doing today to start doing that? And
Yeah.
and a lot of times it just starts with a simple budget. Most people don't even keep a budget. That's
It's
why
so
there's
true.
you know seven, eight, $900 car payments that are common, and the average person makes 35 to $50,000 a year. Do the math, right? That's a third of the check, and then you add rent in or mortgage, and then more than half your check's gone. Where's my money going? Well, where are we spending it? And so, in the aspect of how can we start doing that, I think just simple implementation, because anything that's too much, anything that's too complicated is going to, we're going to be good on it, maybe a couple months, but then it goes away.
Yep.
And we need a couple decade strategy. And
Yeah.
so keeping that simple, keeping it just straightforward. If that means keeping a very tight budget, if that means keeping a kind of a loose budget, do what's best for you. And when it comes to the wealth building, accidents happen all the time. I say, hey, if I had a crystal ball and I could tell you you could tell me the day you're going to die, let's talk the day before and make sure you're set up and make sure your family's fully taken care of no matter what.
Hmm.
Well, until we get that, it's funny to think about, but in realistic terms, anything can happen at any time to anybody, and it doesn't matter your wealth status, it doesn't matter your poverty status. Couple actionable steps. I mean, I would say first, create a budget, start following that budget, pretty very specifically. Two is know how know what your family would receive if something happened to you, whether that's debt, whether that's insurance, whether that's real estate, whether that's retirement plans. What would they get, right?
Hmm.
And then with your household, once we kind of get a habit put in place for that stuff, you're going to learn other things to help build and grow your wealth from there. In regards to your household, I'm a big proponent of teach your kids and show your kids, do it with them, have them do it with you, right? And I saw something on one of the social media platforms recently. The mom made her kids pay rent and utilities every month. Well, what do they get from that? She puts it in savings accounts. She gets gives them a certain amount of actually money that they get to spend on whatever they want. And so they at a they were like the kids were like 5, 7, and 9, something like it. And maybe even there was maybe one younger. From a very young age, they were understanding, hey, I want a candy bar. Okay, you have your own money. You can buy your candy bar if you want. Well, it costs $3.50. I only have $2. Well, I don't know what to do. Like you need to save up more. Simple, small stuff like that are going to be a massively compounding effect for your kids moving, forward. But it all starts with you. And if you're listening to this right now and you have kids and you're not doing those things, don't start with your kids. Start with yourself.
Yes, dude, that's a great line, by the way. And I couldn't agree more. And, a lot of those things could sound really overwhelming to somebody who isn't doing any of those things. And the great thing is you can go literally download a simple budget online somewhere. You could literally probably ask Chat GPT to create a budget for you based on what your numbers are of like the big expenses. There's so many ways, there's so many tools, there's zero excuse to not have a budget and to know what that is. And then, you know, like what you said, Matt, is, you know, when we think about those things with our kids and starting to explain to them, and I know I remember, having those conversations like, I would never talk to my parents about this, and we're having the opposite conversation in our household. We always talk to our kids about this. We, whether it is drugs or sex or money or whatever, like whatever you want to do, whatever those things are, that everything is an open topic, because guess what? how can we have people who are more, aware and have actually had conversations and thoughts about these things that we know they're happening, whether we're talking to them about it or not. So I'm really, really, I appreciate what you're saying, and I think that's a huge deal.
Yeah.
Um,
Real quick before we move on, I do have
yeah,
a little spreadsheet that if anybody wants it, and I'm sure we'll talk about this later, but LinkedIn is kind of where I spend a lot of my time, LinkedIn and Facebook. So feel free to reach out to me. I'll send that to you completely for free just to help give you a resource if you don't know where to start.
awesome. That's totally awesome. One of the things I think you're really, really world class at is networking and connecting. You're a really genuine person. You're a really engaging person, and somebody like every time I'm around you, a, a chemistry, a spark. There's a connection of person to person, and so I would say like what would you tell somebody who they struggle connecting with people, they struggle networking, they struggle maybe even like having confidence in a conversation, right? That it could be literally that level. What do you how do you do that? How do you do that well, and how would you suggest for other people to do that well?
Yeah, I wish I could give, and 100%, I have a very simple answer for you. I wish I could give credit to where I first learned this, but it's one of the easiest things that you can do. And if you're extremely introverted, one of the easiest things that you can go and force yourself to do and that you have control over. How do you do it? WFF. Work. So what do you do for work? Hey, tell me about what you do, how long you've been doing it. Did you do it? Have you always done that? Did you start here? Did you move from somewhere else? Like just anything and everything about work, right? Family. Tell me about your family. If it's just you, tell me about your parents. Tell me about your siblings. Tell me about where you're from. I'm from Omaha. I live in Kansas City. Oh, you're in Omaha. Do you know just anything that they say, you can then ask another question on. So work, family, and fun. What do you like to do for fun? Right. So is it you like to hunt? Do you like to run? Are you crazy like me? You like to do mental, toughness challenges? Do you like to read? Do you like what are your hobbies? What do you enjoy doing? And then the only two things you need to know after that is these two things. Tell me more about that. So whatever they say, hey, tell me more about that. And they'll wander on. And then the second one is, what do you mean?
So
What do you
good.
what do you mean by that?
Yeah,
Right?
that's so good. By the way, there's a great book that I tell people about 50 times a day, Never Split the Difference, which you can totally
I have
dig
it right here.
into all of these. Yeah, mine too. I can see it on my bookshelf. Uh, you know, it's literally exactly the stuff Matt's talking about. And by the way, there's one other thing that is required in this conversation, which is this crazy thing called listening. And you just literally said, like, tell me more about that, or what did you mean by that, or oh, that's really interesting, like when did you start doing that? It means that we are actually listening to engage to a conversation, not just listening to have a moment to fit in our words.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of my good buddies, Philippe, he always says if you think of any conversation as an hour-long conversation,
Mm-hmm.
the other person should talk for 45 minutes or for three-quarters of the time. And then you should talk for one quarter of the time and just tell them what you do and tell them what you need. Because if you're networking, you're there for a reason, you're there for a purpose. Whether you need something, whether you're raising money for something, whether you're trying to sell business, whatever, you have some sort of quote unquote pitch to talk with them. So they should talk three-quarters of the time and then you talk one quarter.
So funny. I used to talk about that with my team all the time, and I would say like, look at it like what a sound wave looks like. And it's like we should see lots more, a lot more of them than we see of ours. Ours, and really, I mean, it's of course it is beneficial from a sales perspective, but it also just means that we are content within what we're doing, and we don't feel this like need, like, gosh, Matt, I really have to get some more words in this conversation, you know,
Yeah.
and instead we just get to settle in, and there's a lack of tension when you let go of that a little bit. and also you having a willing participant who's having that same conversation with you. It's really a beautiful thing.
Yeah. One place that, and a networking place, a networking, event is a great place to do it. But I always encourage whatever you're doing, wherever you're going, have one conversation.
Yeah.
So if you're going to the butcher on a Saturday morning for dinner that evening, talk to the butcher for 10 minutes,
Yeah.
right? Just have an act, not like, hey, Nathan, how are you? No, like talk to him and ask him questions because the only way to get better is to practice. That's it,
100%.
man.
100%. You know what? One of my favorites is, like at the grocery store, that'll have their name tag and how long they've worked there. And so I'll be like, "What's up, Matt? How was your day,
Same.
bro?" And then like 2021, man, you've been slinging groceries for, how's that going? You know,
Yeah.
it's so easy. And when you bring energy like that for somebody, it's so unusual. They don't even know what to do sometimes. You're like, this person actually cares how my day is. What a difference maker.
And what it could lead to in the future, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're at a networking thing and you bring that action and you see them, maybe 2 or 3 times within 6 months and you have 3 great conversations, by the third time, they're going to be looking forward. Hey, they see you across the room. They're
Yeah.
going to come find you.
Yes.
And hey, man, how? Because they think they know you really well, even though they don't. They just feel super comfortable with you. And that's what
Yeah.
that does.
Yeah. And you brought love and you brought
Yeah.
excitement and you looked them in the eyes and you weren't on your phone for, a whole 90 seconds of an interaction, God forbid.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Speaking of the mastermind and this is the Bridge Mastermind podcast. We have amazing people in there, and it just continues to grow like wildfire. What would you say? What are the one or two things that have been the biggest impact or biggest takeaway so far since you've been in the mastermind?
Man, what a great question. And trying to limit it to 1 or 2 things is tough because there's multiple things that, that I've gotten out of it, So
Have
I'll
at
name
it.
I'll name a couple.
Yeah.
The first one, and I mentioned it earlier, is just the clarity and the true love that Nathan gives to you when you join or as you continue to be a member. If you have struggles, if you have, I think it was today or maybe yesterday, he literally posted in the group, "Hey, what can I do for you? What do you need?" And it's not just hey, I'm trying to get in front of you. It's legitimately how can, like, he wants to know. And if I said, "Hey, Nathan, man, I'm having troubles with this, right? My mental toughness, it's been just killing me. My goals, I can't get specific with them." He'll give you the time. He'll give you and he spend so first and foremost, and not to like butter you up too much, but sincerely, like, I personally, and I know a bunch of other members in the group, sincerely appreciate all the love and the effort and the one-on-one that you give. Um, next would be simply just the relationships. I've been in Kansas City for a good amount of time. I've done a lot of networking, like you've said, um, and I feel like I have a decent network, but there's only a couple people that I've even heard of, and every one of them that we've brought in, that Nathan's brought in, or that have been referred to the group, are just killers in the best way. Right? They're just top notch people that I would have maybe come across in other ways, but seeing the level of business owner and quote unquote talent, if you will, just the true person and the culture that's being built, is truly what's going to set the group apart, in my opinion, compared to others.
Hmm.
And third, man, is just the clarity that I've gotten from the different conversations, whether it was from guests that you've brought in to, the in-person events, questions that you've asked me that have really made me think and kind of make or take action. That would be kind of, I would say, the last of my short list. Is just the level of person that it's brought me to individually and as a business owner.
That's so awesome. One of the things that mean the most to me with our people is just seeing those connections being made and seeing individuals who can level each other up in different ways in different areas where we all bring something different. And so
Mhm.
how do we show up like that? And I tell people all the time when I have a conversation about it, is like, hey, this is not a networking organization. It is a network of
Mhm.
amazing people, of killers, like Matt said. And so that's so awesome. And I'm so happy to hear that impact for you. We were talking about a book earlier, and Ed Milet and Andy Frisella really kind of sit in a similar space for me. And you were mentioning The Power of One More. And by the way, I'm a huge proponent of reading. We've already talked about another book on this podcast, or a couple of them. And man, make sure you're freaking reading. Like,
Mhm.
do it. I really I shoot for one book a week, but even if it's one book a month, like audio, you can do an audio Audible account for like $12 or something, 15
Yep.
bucks. So go do it. So anyway, Matt, Power
100%.
of
Totally
One,
agree.
what 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 made you select that book? What was your big takeaway from it?
Yeah, so a few people on my team that I work, kind of colleagues, they were starting to read that, and one gal, she's a fiery Brazilian, and I love her to death. But she's like, you need to read this right now, like tomorrow. You need to start at page one. Like, come on.
Go do it.
And I've followed Ed forever. I knew that he kind of come out with the book. I listened to his podcast. So I was familiar with it. And I was like, absolutely, I'll read it. And I love his story. A lot of it I kind of knew already, but there's a couple chapters in there talks about having one dream, basically vision, right? What do you envision your future being? There's another one being one goal, right? What's that one goal? What if you could make one more thing? What if you could have one more big whatever, right?
Hmm.
And I think that for me, the most impactful chapter of the entire book is this chapter called One More Question. And it basically it goes over, and there's, I don't know, Nathan, there's probably 30 or so questions that Ed gives that really, if it's meant to not read through, go on to the next chapter. It's read a couple, pause, maybe pause for the night, pause for the day, and think about them, reflect on them. Like, one is, for those parents out there, we were talking about the budget, right? What one more thing could I do for my kids?
Hmm.
What one more thing could I do at my job? What's, how can I do? So there's a whole list of these questions that if you want them to be impactful, they'll change your life.
Yeah. I love that. By the way, there's two books that I talk about pretty frequently. One is called The Pivot Year. It's
Hmm,
so good, and it's
I've not heard
basically
of
a
it.
daily reading, just like a short little something. And then the other one, they're both daily, and I read them
The
pretty
Daily
much every
Stoic.
day.
Yeah.
What's that?
I said the Daily Stoic.
Yeah, The Daily Stoic. I love this book. It's so good. And man, Ryan Holiday's he's just such an incredible writer, such an
Yeah,
incredible
he's one of my
um,
favorite. I just finished The Obstacle is the Way. I read it's the Daily Stoic every single day. Listen to the Daily Dad podcast. That's a good one.
Oh,
But
nice. That's
yeah,
awesome.
it's
By
good.
the way, I mean, the obstacle is the way. That's a good timing for people if they're thinking about 75 hard too, right?
100%. I literally I listened to the whole book in a week while I ran every day.
Yeah.
So, for my first workout. And so, it was literally the obstacle is, my shins hurt, my feet hurt, my back hurts, my neck hurts, from the wind, whatever. And he talks about, hey, just keep pushing through, perseverance, this and that and the other. And so absolutely, like, huge fan, big fan.
Yeah. In our family, we call those trophies. Like you roll out of jujitsu and you gotta scratch on your nose like I did a couple weeks ago. My trophy.
Love it.
Matt, this has been an awesome conversation, and really, I think there's a lot of actionable, cool stuff out of this episode that people can take. What is the best way for people to connect with you, and whether they want to hear more about business, or what you the budget that you talked about.
Yeah. The two best ways would be either on Facebook or on LinkedIn. I spend the majority of my time in those places.
Awesome. It's Matt Moylan. We'll have that information on the podcast as well. And also we now recently have an actual website for Bridge Mastermind too. So bridgemastermind.com. I can't believe we got it. I can't believe we got that. But and I didn't spend $10,000 for it either. I think it was like $11. I was like,
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Right.
Uh, so and I just want to put one more uh, mention out there too, that this is a growing and an amazing organization, community of people. So 6, 7, 8 figure business owners. I finally, I was on a call, Matt, when this came, but it was we're scaling businesses, we're doing life, and we're making an impact. And if that is the kind of community you want to be around and you are in the KC area, we would love to have, I'd love to chat with you. So um,
Amen.
it's it's been awesome. Just the beginning too.
That's right. That's right. We're barely
So
at the starting line.
that's right. It makes me think of that cake song. My son loves that. So I love to give our guests a final word, a word of wisdom, a word of inspiration. So Matt, microphone's yours.
Well, again, thanks for having me on today, man. It's been a pleasure to connect and hopefully uh the listeners have gotten one piece out right out of our conversation.
Yeah.
If nothing else, I would just put it simply like this: be clear.
Mm,
And if you don't know what that means, you should probably spend some time to figure out what being clear with yourself means,
mm,
because there's so many different avenues that can go. And being clear helped me realize that I want to be more self-disciplined and more mentally tough. Being clear when I was doing the goal training and when we were doing our thing at the end of the year helped me realize what was next for me. Being clear helps me realize where I need and where I can be a better dad, a better father, and a better friend. And so I think just simply, man, just be clear with yourself. And if you don't know what that means, take some time and meditate with it. And you should work on it every single day, maybe a couple times a day, 30, 45 minutes a piece. So just be clear.
I love that. That's awesome words of wisdom. Matt, what a pleasure, my friends.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for being on the podcast. We'll see you soon.